Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back
to the Justice and Faith Show. So, I know we said we were going to go every week. Life happened. We couldn't do it last week.
We didn't say we're doing it yet. We said we're going to start doing it again.
Right. So, we didn't do it last week. But we're back. Hey. And I just wanted to reiterate again that we need people to follow us and like us and comment and talk to us and tell us what you want to hear.
Even if you have suggestions for other podcasts or different things like that. I was thinking of starting like a mailbag type situation, but I don't want an empty mailbag. I don't want people. I've had people who watch or listen and they'll they'll message me like through Facebook or something like that. But I'm just like, if you make a comment on the channel, because it helps to grow the channel, it helps to grow what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. Hopefully within the next few months, we're going to be collaborating with a few other people. I have a thing that I'm doing to be a guest, at least myself, to try to gain some traction to go over. And that kind of segues into, today's topic. I've been really big into mental health, specifically this week.
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time talking to women, getting women's perspective and understanding things, and helping them with their relationship things. And it's great. But this week, for whatever reason, I've been talking to a lot of men, and not that I don't already know some of these things. It is incredibly sad and daunting, the amount of things that men are going through and the lack of support that we have as a community. And I don't mean men to men. I mean from people that supposedly care about us. And we're going to dive into the minutia of that. But it is really sad how people look at men, the expectations, the weight that's on our shoulders, and the lack of resources that are readily available for us to be able to have safe spaces.
Right.
So we're gonna dive into that. It was actually a topic that Faith thought of today, specifically about the stress of men in marriage.
Yeah.
More so for me, I'm like, well, do women even care about men?
Right.
So the way that the title might be, stress, the stress of men in marriage. Do women even care about men? We'll figure that out at the, but essentially what it comes down to is that I feel like there's a lot of women out there who don't give the correct respect to men. They don't really care about them the way that they say they do, and then they judge them mercilessly because of some of the behaviors that they exhibit, and then they'll just go, oh well, we'll use one of your examples, like what you said. You said like if you were to reverse these things.
Right. So that's what I wanted to start with.
Yeah. So if you want.
So we just to get things going and to kind of give you an idea of where we are going with this. We're going to say some sentences, some statements that are regularly said about men. I've heard them say it about men. He's heard them said about men. There's jokes on TV that these are stuff that people commonly say about men that no one bats an eye. But we're going to switch it, say it about a woman, and then see how you feel about that. Does it make you feel some type of way? And if it does, when it's said about a woman, why is it not when it's said about a man? So, for example, the first one I wanted to say was, women can't be good parents. What? Women can't be good parents. Let me say that slower in case you missed it. Women cannot be good parents. No, that's not a thing. And I've heard people say that about men. Oh, men can't be good parents. They can't be good nurturers, or they can't be good. Specifically, usually it's talking about single parents. But even still, a lot of single dads and or single moms, they're looked at completely differently. He is a unicorn because he's the one that kept Arabella as opposed to Arabella's mother.
But I've never heard anything negative about me, but what it is that people always looked at me like, oh, they always saw me, and it's just like, you're doing a great job. It was the way they spoke to me. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have spoke to her the same way,
And that leads me to my next one.
Yeah.
Mom's going out for the night, gonna get a drink. Dad's going to babysit the kid. Okay, reverse it. Dad is going out for the night. Mom's going to babysit the kid. what? Like,
Yeah,
it's
not a statement you would ever hear.
That is so, like, deeper than people realize, because the fact that a father asks if it's okay to babysit his child means that in that relationship, he's not looked at as a parent.
Well, because sometimes the moms will say, hey, can you watch the kids while I do this? And what happens is, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the conditioning. A lot of that is conditioning.
Yeah.
Because, in a lot of situations, and I'm not even going to say now, because the modern family is different. But a lot of it's conditioning. So you hear it, you don't even think, like, babysit. Like, you're not even thinking, watch the kids. But that's something that's always hit me. No one's ever going to ask me to watch. Or somebody's like, oh, you're a good dad because you've done this. I'm like, I'm a father. I'm a dad. Right. Like, this is, I chose to have a child. So me doing certain things, it kind of comes with the territory. So I'm not a good dad because I do this or do that or whatever. There's times where I could go above and beyond, like, me, like how I try to set certain stuff up. But, regular care needs and things that are to be expected and some things to not be expected, that's just me doing what I have to do. But a lot of times there are men who they're not raised to do these things. A lot of women aren't raised to be parents, but
and they're not typically, men are not the ones that are taking care of the kids. Typically in like a historical in a historical home. It's the woman who takes care of the kids and the man who takes care of the money and the bills and
we're not even, when we say historical, we're talking about 50 years ago. We're not even talking about in the last 20, 30, 40 years, because that's been steadily changing. Yes. But
it's still a thing in some aspects.
The history of it is that there's still people who want things to be traditional. However, things aren't traditional. A lot, especially middle class income, like we do pretty well, but we have two incomes. And so there's more of an equivalency. I make more money than her, but there's still equivalency within the household. Whereas we have things that we do, like some days she does laundry, some days I do it. She wash the dishes, I do it. She take out trash, I take out trash. Used to be a time she did the dishes, she did the cooking, she did the child rearing. I took out the trash and I killed a rat if it was running around the house or something like that. Like that's what, and the cooking was if I was barbecuing. Yeah. That's when I would cook. And a lot of people grew up in those types of environments. I grew up in environments like that. However, to unicorn thing, I just chose to do things a different way.
Right.
But in retrospect, what happens is, because we're conditioned to do those things, nobody really questions it. Right. But in finding out and talking to a lot of men this week, like, if you put 20 men in a room and you start, like me, and if I started asking them questions and stuff, the way that things start pouring out, man, like, it makes me kind of emotional, because it's like, these men are hurting.
Right. So you have to so if you ask yourself the question, do women, or do I as a woman, care about men or care about my significant other, especially my significant other, but any other men in your life, really, anybody that you have a close relationship to that happens to be a male, do you care about that person? And if the answer is yes, which I hope most people would just inherently say, yes, I care about him, what do you do to show him, or what do you say, or what don't you do to show him that you care? So if you say, yes, I care, what are you doing to show him that you care? We as women need to do better. And I'm saying this is general, broad statement, but women need to do better about showing our men we care about their emotions. Because
and more specific, I just want to make this point. You need to ask, like, I know you're getting to that point, but you thinking that you're showing a man how you care, or you're thinking that you're doing something that we want, that's not accurate. If you look at a lot of women now, they're not doing, most guys, and this is kind of off subject, but really thinking about what men want, most men don't want women with large, astronomical, cartoonish bodies. They don't want women who are unproportionate with skinny waists. They don't want women with long, clumpy eyelashes, a lot of makeup on. They don't want sassy women. They don't even want overeducated women. They don't mind. Now, all this stuff, it can be, if you want to do that for yourself, but when you actively, if you're with somebody and they say, hey, I prefer you with no makeup on. Now, I understand some women are like, oh, for me, I have to have makeup on for myself, but it's also can you do less? It's a compromise. It's like, this is how I feel. And if I ask you, like, if I was to say, hey, babe, now if I told you to wear more makeup, you probably look at me like, well, what's wrong with me? It's like it's these constant battles. But if you want to see the natural person that you married or whatever, and you have to argue and say, well, can you wear more natural looking makeup? Can you wear? And it's a conversation. I'm just telling you what I would like. I'm not telling you what you have to do. I can't demand that of you. I'm asking that of you. And because you care about me, you care about how I feel, then you should want to compromise and do that. If you're out with your friends or by yourself, do what you want. But if you're out with me, wear lighter makeup and things like that. Like, so you have to make sure whatever you're doing, you're not just doing it and thinking that this is what the man wants.
Right.
You know, especially if he told you.
Right.
So sometimes it is good to kind of poke and prod. I know a lot of men might say, or a lot of women don't think men like to be nagged. You don't like to be nagged about BS. But if you're asking, like, babe, what do you really want? Like, what do you want sexually? What do you want mentally, physically? As far as work's concerned, are you happy? Like, is there any changes that we can do together? And make sure that you speak in those types of terms. Can we do this together?
Right.
Like, not, well, if you want a better job, go get a better job. It's like, well, are you happy with your job? Like, like I know you have it because it provides this money, but what if I were, like, there are conversations, because even if Faith said, babe, I know you're struggling at work, you feel some type of way, like, I could, ask for a raise at work, or I could do more. A man is more likely going to say, you know what? No, I'm good. But just the fact that you care enough to be able to say, I'm willing to take on more so you can take on less, it honestly helps men. We want to do more because we want to work for that type of person, because it's like the fact that you're willing to take more burden on for me, to take that off of me makes that burden that we're carrying a lot lighter.
Right. And that's something that women, I don't think, because I never thought about it because I'm not a man, but we've had a conversation a couple times now, and it's kind of like it does make me look at certain things differently with you specifically. Women in general, I'm going to say again, probably general term that might apply to the women watching, we don't necessarily think about or know, or maybe in some cases care about the pressure men have, because it's expected that you're going to have that pressure.
Right.
Because you're the one that's going to, in most homes, make the most money, pay the most bills. Like, you are going to be the one that's going to kill the rats. You're going to be the one that's going to fight the grizzly bear if we go camping. You're the one, if there's a bump in the night, you're the one going to get up. And it's just... what's going to happen?
And provisions, yeah.
Like, you're not going to look at me and say, babe, can you go look at that, like, go get that, like, go check to see if there's a burglar. Like, that's not something
and that could be a life or death situation.
Right. And it's stressful for men to have those things.
But honestly, like that one situation, I didn't even think about it. It was just inherent to, alarm went off, my family. Like, that's just what I thought. But... you also, you didn't have time to, but it's one of those things that's inherent, and I don't mind that, and I don't think most men mind that, but at the same time, you immediately told me, like, your appreciation and whatever the case may be, because there are, you see it on TV, and it's like you hear something, and the woman's like, babe, wait, no, that wouldn't have been me. If you heard something, Arabella said, I heard something, I'm getting up to see what the heck is going on. Mm-hmm. And that's just me. But it could be a life or death, thing. When I got up, it could have been somebody already through the door holding a gun up. That's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about protecting my family, and it's kind of expected. I'm not sure if anybody, remember we just saw the movie Nobody. Yeah. And that, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a situation like that happens, and his reaction to it, his family looked at him crazy because he didn't react the way that they thought he should have reacted. Yeah. But he
Come to find out he could have taken care of it.
But come on. But what he actually did though was save his family in a different way, because he didn't engage. Mm-hmm. But the expectation is, oh, you're a punk, you're a wuss because you didn't do this. There is a situation that happened with us a few years ago where I made a statement and somebody made a statement back to me. Now, if this was my younger years, it could have been really bad. But I had to task myself with understanding it's best to walk away in this situation, even though my ego did not want me to, because I was with my wife. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, guys at his trunk, if he gets upset, he's already seemed upset. And if he got more, I could have been shot, Faith could have been shot, something worse could have happened, and we're tasked to make split-second decisions. And sometimes they don't involve the physicality, or they don't involve something the way that somebody might think that we should do it, and then we'll get labeled as a wuss or something like that. Right. But it's like, there's even
but certain... But it's okay, to a certain extent, it's okay to, like, and I feel like we need to stop that with guys. Like, guys have emotions. Guys have feelings. Guys have, like, you're going to talk about this a little bit later, depression. Like, a lot of things that guys go through, they go through silently because
they call it a silent epidemic.
As
Men's
a general rule, people don't care.
No.
Because you just have to suck
and we're
it up.
not taught anything.
Because even as young boys and children and young boys, you get told to suck it up, walk it off.
Or put some dirt on it.
But girls, if we're crying, we're coddled, we're consoled, we're like, oh my goodness, it's okay, let me kiss it, let me make it better. So girls and boys, just from birth up.
Think about this. You're in a relationship. You come home to your parents or somebody like that. You got a girlfriend. You're talking to him. Yeah, Justice is doing X, Y, Z. Justice ain't crap. He's a dog. He's this or whatever. Leave him, right? Yeah. Leave him. Well, situation is different. I go your parents and they're like, oh well, why are you like whatever. Your parents are going to tell you certain things unless they're real, and they might say, hey. But then you talk to I've had male friends and we'll talk, and honestly, in regards to you specifically, the ones who really good, they have told me like, that's your wife, you got to figure it out. And I can honestly say that my friends have told me that like, that's your wife, you got to figure it out, boss. Mm-hmm. And that's what I needed to hear, and nor was I bashing you, and nor would they bash you.
Right.
And a lot of times that's what happens, because you would get caught. Oh, you can do better. Remember how we got back together?
Yeah.
Because you didn't want the fluff. You didn't want somebody that's going to try to put a Band-Aid on it and counter you, because you're like, no, I need to know the real thing.
Yeah.
Men don't typically get caught. Well, that's another thing. Some men do, and then they grow up to be weak men, and that's another situation. But inherently, men don't get coddled the same way as women, historically.
Right.
And as a result, women are protected a lot differently. We use the example, like, I asked her, I said, if your brother and your sister were both dealing with abusive relationships, if your brother called and his wife he said, hey, my wife's beating me up. But then your sister called and said, hey, my husband's beating you up. I said, who would you be more likely to answer the phone for? And she told me, and I was like, okay. I said, if they both asked for help for you to go over, who would you be more likely to go to? And it's like my sister.
Probably my sister.
And I said, what if your brother was getting beat up with pipes and sticks and stabbed and stuff? You still would probably go to your sister. Because men are, would you say, well, men are stronger.
They're stronger, and they're typically more capable of defending themselves against the opposite sex.
Right. But even in that situation, if you didn't go and help, the cops are called and stuff. The cops are going to come and they're going to look at who?
Him.
Yeah. And even if he had a cut, now the laws in PR are a little bit different, but even if he had a cut or something like that, and let's just I don't want to use their situation like this, but they have children. So if the woman grabbed a young child and held the young child and said she was scared for her life or something, those police are probably going to escort her brother out and say, hey.
No evidence, no nothing.
No, he's cut. He's bleeding, and they're going to escort him out.
Yeah.
I've been in this situation. Matter of fact, quick story. I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if my friend is going to watch this. Crystal, if you're watching this, sorry. to talk about this story. But I was, seeing a girl. We stopped seeing each other. Something happened. I can't even explain the level of annoyance that she was providing. Went to my dorm, was walking to my dorm room. She jumped on my back. My friend tried to set a pick. He said, run. I said, I'm not running. Okay. She jumped on my back. I flung her off. There was a little scuffle. There was a little tussle. And then, the cops came, guns drawn. There was a little bit more. I had a BB gun. A little pit pullback BB gun. So they thought I had a gun, because somebody said, she said I had a gun, or somebody said I had a gun. So that was the situation. But even still, before that, the people that were there, they had my back. But even hearing the situation, the way that they were, and I got kicked off campus. I actually got to finish out my last month of my semester, but I was kicked off. Even at night, I wasn't allowed to be back in my room. I had to get a hotel room for the night. Freshman in college, because, my word and what I dealt with, the fact that I was the one that was assaulted, it didn't even matter. Mm-hmm. So it's just, and things like that have happened throughout life, where not personally to me, thankfully it hasn't been a lot of situations like that for me, but I've seen it where men don't get they don't get the same thing. You look at the justice system.
They don't get the benefit of the doubt.
They don't. You look at the justice system. You look at the way that the court system's set up in regards to parenting. I know a lot of women, they use their kids as crutches. The fathers don't get to see their kids. The father don't get no say-so. And then what happens? What's the narrative that's created? Fathers are deadbeat. Right. They don't want to be parents. They don't want anything to do with the children.
Right. And if you say that about a woman, wait and see what looks you get.
They're like, yeah, well, unless you can prove. Like, if I was to say it is different because it's proven. But if I was to be in a different situation and Arabella was to be with her mother and I call her mother a deadbeat, but she has her all the time.
Yeah.
People not looking at it that they're like, how can she be a deadbeat because she has her?
Right.
But people don't understand. You could be a deadbeat parent and have your kids all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's just my situation is slightly different when it comes to that. But there are very many men who want to be. You see it all the time. Like, they have to pay an exorbitant amount of money that the mom's not even really using for the child. That the system is not set up for them to succeed. Even if the welfare and stuff, it doesn't work the same for men. The level of support for a single dad is not the same as it is for women. There's so many levels to it. I don't want to get too far from the tangent of just that, but
so like kind of bringing it back just a little bit, like if you ask yourself, do I care about men? And the answer is yes. Then you have to kind of look into it and be like, okay, do I know my husband and what stresses him out, what he's going through, what his emotions are? Do I know all these things so that like if something's happening, I can be proactive and do what I need to do to care for him? Because roles were reversed, I know he would do the same for me.
Or even if I didn't, it would be expected.
Yeah.
That's another big thing. Like, women have this expectation of men, but it doesn't work the reverse way. I wanted to use some of these statistics, right, that a lot of people just aren't really privy to. Mm-hmm. So nearly 1 in 10 men experience depression and anxiety, right? Most of the women that I know, Faith is one of a handful, and I got fingers left over women that I know that doesn't suffer from anxiety or depression, is not on any kind of medication, does not self-medicate with marijuana or wine, even though she's drinking a little wine now. It's not, she doesn't drink as much as I wish she drank, to be honest. But, so anxiety and depression is not something that typically gets spoken about in regards to men, but we're a lot more likely to even experience it. But if you throw a stone outside of random people, you will hit a woman that is on some kind of medication that's been clinically diagnosed. Now, somebody can say, well, men, they don't want to get the pills. They don't want to get diagnosed. True. On the inverse, I know a lot of men who have been diagnosed with bipolar and intermittent explosive disorder. Think about those. And think about the way that those things are exhibited. And think about how men and women are. Women sad, depressed. Oh. Men, anger, or subdued. Bipolar, subdued or anger. No, it's a lifestyle. You know when it's on. I'm not always up. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey. After a while, it just increases because like, why am I doing this thing?
Yeah.
And so if today I was like that, and then tomorrow it's like he was perfectly fine today, but yesterday he was so high and strung and through the roof. Did you ever think that maybe it's something that you did? Right. Maybe it's something that you weren't listening to.
Right. No, that's
the adjustment that doesn't happen because it's like it's on me. You're getting upset. This is a small thing, but you don't realize I was triggered by this thing because once like men have what does it says? About 6 out of every 10 men experience at least one trauma in their lives. Men are more likely to experience trauma related to accidents, physical assault, combat, disaster, or to witness death or injury. PTSD can develop weeks, months, and sometimes even years after an experienced trauma and can cause a person to relive the traumatic event, avoid places or situations that serve as a reminder of it, feeling on alert or keyed up for danger, experience nightmares or flashbacks, and a number of other troubling symptoms that can interfere with their everyday life. Do you understand that? Like, it's not even something I've been through a lot of trauma. And the more that it's unveiled, the more that I've known, but it's like it doesn't even show up automatically. So you can be dealing with a man who has unrealized trauma and no one's caring about it. So there's things that can be triggered. Maybe his mom beat him as a kid and now his wife is yelling at him and he remembers before the beating came to yelling. Or his dad yelled and he just hears somebody yelling at him or beating him down or saying he's worthless or saying this and that. And it triggers this response. And some people's response is just to reclude and just to fall back. Or some people's response is to fight.
Yeah.
And to fight back. And these become troubling things. But what happens is when the man fights back or he reacts like this because you're over top of him doing this and he smacks you, he's abusive. And I'm not condoning that at all. But what I'm saying is people have to understand some people are fight and some people are flight. And you have to understand, you can't just be pointing at people, talking down to them, treating them like garbage, and just saying, oh, you're a man, you should be able to take it.
Right. Right. Because if that was the reverse, and you said, "Oh, you're a woman, you're supposed to be just to be able to take it,"
you want equality.
it would be.
You can have children. That's supposed to be the toughest thing a person, and men can't do that.
Right, and it's like it's just we forget sometimes, I guess, or ignore the fact that men are human. They have emotions. They have feelings. Like they can be triggered. They can be depressed. They can be happy, sad. All the same things that women can be. They express it differently for sure.
Or they don't express it at all. Like, I'm sorry, but I was like, there's so many points to hit on. Like, the suicide rates of men, they're higher. The thoughts of suicide are higher. If anybody knows about the, I forgot what the name of the forest is in Japan. If anybody knows about the history of Japanese suicide, if anybody knows about just suicide in general, there's places all over the country that are known, specifically bridges and stuff like that, for suicide. Look at statistics and look at men. Look at the young people. The young people committing suicide and stuff. The number one race through 12 through 18. Look at how many young men it is. Look at the men will admit to depression, they'll admit to certain things, but they don't really want to get help for it. You want to know why? Because it's looked down upon within their own. They're taught that if you go get help, then you're not man enough to deal with a situation on their own.
Right.
And you want to know one of the things that men turn to? More than 2/3 likely to binge drink. More than half is likely to have DUIs and DWIs. I'm pretty sure we all know one person who has a DWI or DUI. Answer the question: is it a man or a woman? Because I've never heard of a woman getting one. I'm not saying they haven't, but I've seen many a woman not conditioned. But you want to know what? A woman or a friend will take a woman's keys before they take a man's keys. Because they'll go, we can't stop a man from doing what he wants to do. I've been told this.
Right.
I can't stop you from... You didn't even try. You didn't even try.
Right. But
if it's your girlfriend, your sister, or something like, oh, no, girl, you're not drunk. We getting an Uber. We getting a taxi. We're staying here tonight. We're doing something else. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, well, these men... And you got to think about why the men are drinking. They come in, they grab a beer, they grab a drink, they do something. They want to unleash they want to relieve their day.
Right.
And the quickest things that we can get are things that are typically vices. Women want to talk about men are dirty because they watch porn. Well, wives, girlfriends, are you sexually satisfying your man? Have you asked him if he's sexually satisfied, and do you care if he says he's not? Right. Because if you don't, then don't get upset because of what he uses to get through.
Right.
These are coping mechanisms. They're not good. Trust, I've dealt with them all. And it's not saying that it's right or it's good, but we all have coping mechanisms. And this is what you have to understand. If you want us to stop using bad coping mechanisms, you have to help.
Right.
If Faith had a bunch of bad coping mechanisms or something, like she was addicted to shopping because every time she got stressed, she spent thousands of dollars on shopping, we have to come to some kind of mutual agreement as to how to stop that. Because that's putting us in debt or whatever the case may be. If I had a drinking habit in which I was drinking before work, during work, after work, I'm driving all around and stuff like that, that's a danger to myself and others. And when I'm drinking because I'm upset, I don't care about anyone else. And that's the dangerous part.
Yeah.
And then you're selfish. You want to know what's selfish? Is being in an environment or being in environments where no one cares about how you feel because they expect you just to be able to take it. They expect every man to be a Superman.
Right. Because if you're not, and correct me if I'm wrong, but amongst men, it's also a thing. Not just like women who don't care, but men on other men. Like if
it's not
you
as bad.
Can't take something, you're called a punk or you're called a.
It's not as bad, and depending on who you are. If you're dealing with real men talk.
Okay.
Now, well, I've been encouraging this. Real men talk. Real men break down. Real men have struggles, and I love it. For my brothers out there that I've been talking to, if you're watching this, I know a few of you are. Then I appreciate your conversations, and I appreciate you opening up to me, and also having that safe space. Like, I'm not going to judge, and I've been through stuff. I'm in a marriage. I'm happily married. I love my wife, but she doesn't understand everything about me. But she understands more, and she does things to not be a stressor. Like, I can come in and know Faith's not going to stress me. She's not going to lord over me and tell me I'm doing anything wrong. Or if she, or not tell me I'm doing anything wrong, but she's not going to demean me, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I demand respect in my household, but at the same time, I earn it. I don't just demand respect and don't do anything. Mm-hmm. And that's on the men's side. You can't demand respect and not do anything, but unless you're doing something adverse to the respect, you should just be offered respect. Everybody deserves respect. Yeah. Everybody deserves respect as a human. The level of respect is different, but it's just we have to do better. Men, we have to keep working on expressing ourselves in a positive, proactive way, and try to find better coping mechanisms. And women, I truly believe women they have to talk to men more and listen, really listen. Don't talk back, listen to them.
Yes, ask how they're doing, not just how was your day. How are you? How are you coping with, if you've talked to him at all and he's got stresses at work, if he's got stresses with friends or family or whatever, how are you doing with that situation? And let him talk and let him express himself.
And follow up on it. Don't just let it happen and then don't do anything with it. Follow up on it. There's a lot of unmet needs that men have, and in the world, happy wife, happy life. We need something that for husbands too. Mm-hmm. We need to focus on everybody should do the best that they can to compromise and help with happiness, joy, all that, whatever you want to call it. It has to happen on both ends because men are dying. Low expectancy rate. Especially black men, was it 68? I think men in general, I think it's 69. Lower expectancy rate, all of that kind of stuff. The stroke levels of strokes, men. Think about the different ways that we died. Heart attacks, men. Mm-hmm. That's for a reason.
Yeah.
That's for a reason.
So that's all the time we have for today. We hope that it made sense. We hope that it was something
this is going to be, we're going to highlight this as a mental health episode because I'm very passionate about this because I know too much bad stuff between everyone, and I know that this is a very big one that I believe that we can really start to hammer this down, then all the men ain't crap, men ain't dads, men are deadbeats, all this kind of stuff. I think all that can be mitigated, and then we can work better in relationships, and I think everything could be so much more better because men are willing to do the work.
Right.
But they also want somebody that appreciates them and understands, we know you're a human too, and you have feelings and emotions, and I want to let you know I appreciate you. How can I do better?
Right. So we'll leave with that. We hope that you got something out of it. Comment,
subscribe, follow us on IG. If you have any questions or if you want to tell us about your own issues or your own stories, or if you just need somebody to talk to, always, I can always make myself available, especially for these types of things, because we all need each other. All right, so we need to make a community of people who care about each other.
Yep. So
keep your faith strong
and maintain your justice.
Everybody stay blessed.
Bye.